Well, good morning to you all, and thank you for letting me join in this birthday celebration for Dr. Bach. As we all know, he was born on September the 24th, 1886. And that makes it a special day for all of us who work with the flower remedies that he discovered. I first celebrated this birthday in 1986 when we organised a conference in Oxford with Nicky Murray, who at that time used to be at the Bach Centre in Sotwell. Nicky Murray had worked with Nora Weeks and took over the work with her brother John when Nora died. It was Nicky who actually showed me how to make remedies and which plants to choose, which were the right ones and the correct procedures for dilution and preparation and manufacture. At the conference, Nicky gave a talk about preparing flower essences. She never made a secret about it, and demonstrated the process using impatiens, which was flowering at that time. The afternoon ended with a birthday cake with 100 candles for Dr. Bach. The chef had carefully lit the candles outside the room and wheeled the cake in on a trolley. And as the cake came through the door, the draft from the air conditioning unit blew out all the candles. "Ah," we shouted, "Dr. Bach is blowing out the candles." Well, in the UK, we say that when you blow out the candles on your birthday cake, you can make a wish. Perhaps that's just something for children. But if Dr. Bach had been there for that birthday, what do you think his wish might have been? Of course, we know a birthday wish is secret and thus must not be told. But when I read some of the things which Bach wrote, I think that I can guess something of what his wish might have been. In the introduction to the 1941 edition of the 12 Healers and Other Remedies, the book that he wrote, you can read it. It says, "There is little more to say, for the understanding mind will know all this, and may there be sufficient of those with an understanding mind, unhampered by the trend of science, to use these gifts of God for the relief and blessing of those around them." So I think he might have made his wish as the candles were blown out on his 100th birthday, just that. And of course, we never know how many people it takes to have a sufficient number, as he calls it. But the number of people with an understanding mind has increased substantially since 1986, and in many countries outside of England. And perhaps, if I may say it, there are more people in Brazil than in any other country who have taken up this cause and this opportunity to learn without the trend of science. And if it were to be true, then it's because of what you do. So let me say thank you to you all. But if I might take a little more of your time, I would like to reflect upon September the 24th for a moment longer. In the Southern Hemisphere, it might be that this day is the herald of spring, or at least the end of winter. Here in the north, it's definitely the end of summer, and a signal for autumn, when the leaves fall and the land prepares for the darker days. And yet, it was in September 1928 that Dr. Bach took a train out from London and began his work of discovering the new remedies. He arrived in the town of Abergavenny and walked out along the River Usk towards Crickhowell. For him, it was a new beginning. And who knows, it might have been on his birthday that year too. Up until that time, he had been hard at work with medical practice and medical studies in his research. What changed in 1928 was his decision to step away from the trend of science and the science of the laboratory with its flasks and petri dishes, and walk out into the sunshine of self-discovery. After September 1928, the only laboratory was his own body and self-knowledge as it came to him in the field surrounded by nature. Now, we cannot, all of us, spend our days out there in the fields talking to the flowers. But this is not the important point here. It seems to me that the important change in his thinking was that to see in the work with his new remedies, the first person to treat was himself. So when he walked out along the riverside in Krakow and saw impatiens growing there, it was a moment of self-recognition. And that is why I think it's important that when we train to be Bach flower practitioners and teachers, that we begin with the process of self-recognition. Again, Dr. Bach wrote about that extensively. The very descriptions of the 38 essences tell us what we need to recognize and how we may need to change. So, September 1928 was a moment for Bach when everything began to change. Of course, it did not come in just one moment, as the impatiens seeds exploded in his hand, but that may have been the moment when his earlier wish was answered. What earlier wish am I talking about? I hear you say, what earlier wish? Well, the wish that he wrote about in January 1929 in a paper published by the British Homeopathic Journal, where he said, "I wish it were possible that we could present you with 7 herbs instead of 7 groups of bacteria, because there always seems to be some reticence in the mind of many to use anything associated with disease." Now, this was a reference to the nosodes that he prepared from the patient's feces. Now, this may be too much detail for a birthday celebration, but what I'm suggesting is that it's never too late to try and bring about change and better learn about ourselves, be this in relation to health, disease, diet, education, or life purpose. Last year we had a meeting on September the 26th, and afterwards, that afternoon, I had a serious accident when I fell headlong off a wall. I was badly bruised, but fortunately okay, and no broken bones. Afterwards, I thought a lot about it and came to just one conclusion. I must change my behavior and stop acting as if I'm still 20 years old and a young man. Well, perhaps we cannot always see things so clearly as a line of cause and effect, but I hope that I will not forget that wake-up call. And now back to this year and this birthday for Dr. Bach. Maybe we can all make a wish, both individually and as a group. If you choose to do that, please write down what each of you say and send it to me when you can. For my part, I wish for more exchange of ideas and sharing of information in a free and respectful way. I have a new book coming out this month, and it's not a book to read and learn from, but a book to read, to reflect upon, and to share ideas. Anyway, have a wonderful day and enjoy the cakes which I'm sure you're going to share. So, happy birthday, Dr. Bach.